Hamilton, slapped with a track limits penalty, drops to P16 on the grid, and goes ballistic at his team for not warning him. Don't miss the full story and aftermath. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. It all came down to one lap. One final, all-or-nothing moment. Everything Lewis Hamilton had done that weekend, every gear shift, every tire strategy, every setup tweak, had built to this single, thunderous crescendo. His first 2 qualifying laps were already sacrificed to the gods of unpredictability, the first wrecked by a sluggish McLaren limping through Sector 2 like it was on a Sunday cruise, completely blocking the line and forcing Lewis to back out with a frustrated grunt. The second lap, blisteringly quick through Sector 1, fell apart when a slight gust of crosswind unsettled the rear at Turn 9, sending the car sliding sideways for a heartbeat, forcing a correction that shattered the balance and cost precious tenths. But none of it mattered now. Nothing. Because Lewis Hamilton, one of the greatest to ever touch a Formula One car, was about to throw down. No more banker laps. No more margin. Just pure, unfiltered aggression laced with surgical precision. As he rolled down the pit lane for one final attempt, the tension in the Mercedes garage was suffocating. Mechanics stood frozen. Toto Wolff stared at the screens like they were about to determine the fate of the universe. Engineers hunched over telemetry with their fingers crossed. Across the paddock, Ferrari's garage went dead quiet. Red Bull screens flickered nervously. Everyone knew what was coming. Hamilton wasn't driving for a front-row start. He was driving for a statement. The outlap was a masterclass in temperature management. Brakes at optimum, tires in the perfect window, hybrid deployment calibrated to the millisecond. He clicked through modes like a pianist tuning a grand piano before unleashing Beethoven. And then, he launched. The first corner came and went like a blur of instinct. No hesitation. He threw the car into the apex, letting the rear rotate with just the right amount of slide before planting the throttle. Turn 2. Turn 3. Every exit, every gear change, every brush of curb was pure poetry. It was Hamilton at his most dangerous, not just fast, but completely in tune. Purple Sector 1. Fastest of anyone. He was flying. Through Sector 2, he flirted with disaster, using every inch of tarmac, dancing along the edge of adhesion. At Turn 7, he nearly brushed the wall, pushing the W15 to a place few others dare to go. The car twitched under braking but stayed obedient. Sector 2 flashed green, still personal best. The live delta blinked, plus 0.186. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. He was up by almost 2/10. That lap, at that moment, was enough for a front-row lockout. Maybe even pole. The paddock could feel it. The crowd roared through the broadcast. Twitter exploded. Hamilton was on a flyer. A lap that defied age, expectations, and physics. But then, nothing. No warning over the radio. No mind track limits at Turn 4. No watch your exit. Silence. That unnatural, deafening silence that creeps in when something's been missed. His race engineer, usually a constant voice in his ear during high-stakes laps, was quiet. No real-time adjustments. No tactical reminders. Just nothing. For a driver pushing to the absolute outer limit, that kind of silence is fatal. Because in today's F1, staying within track limits is a game of inches, sometimes millimeters. It's not about being cautious. It's about knowing exactly when and where to be reminded of danger. Turn 4 was a known trap. A known red zone. And Lewis got no heads up. He crossed the finish line. The dash told him the lap was clean. Fast. Competitive. He knew it. "That's all I've got, man," he shouted. And he meant it. That lap had drained everything from him. Adrenaline. Concentration. Muscle memory. He'd used it all. The data suggested it was P3. Maybe even P2. He was back. He'd silenced doubters. He'd lit up the timing sheets. And then, the mood shifted. In the cool-down room, Lewis noticed it first. His name flickered on the screen. Dropping. Sliding. A tiny asterisk appeared next to it. One that always spells doom. Track limits violation, Turn 4. His expression didn't change. But his eyes did. The spark behind them hardened. Back in the garage, replays confirmed the worst. Just barely, a fraction, a whisper of a tire, had crossed the white line. No damage. No off-track adventure. Just a ghost-like extension beyond the edge. The kind you only notice when someone's watching. And no one was. He turned to his race engineer, voice calm but icy. "Why didn't I hear anything?" The response was delayed. Uncertain. A babble of excuses. Lewis didn't answer. He just nodded. Because it wasn't about the deleted lap anymore. It was about trust. About accountability. About how, in a team built on precision and timing, the one moment that required absolute clarity was met with radio silence. He didn't storm out. Didn't throw his gloves. He just stood there. Quiet. But inside, the volcano raged. Because Lewis Hamilton didn't just lose a lap, he lost an opportunity created by himself. Not by strategy. Not by pit wall magic. But by gut, talent, and pure will. And it had been taken from him by an oversight that should never have happened at this level. Later, when asked about it by reporters, he gave the classic Hamilton smirk. "I gave it everything," he said. "Shame about the result." But if you were paying attention, you could see it. Behind the calm voice, the graceful demeanor, was a lion sharpening its claws. Because drivers like Hamilton don't just take this on the chin. They store it. They file it away. They turn it into fuel. The next day, he'd be a different animal. Hungrier. Meaner. Merciless. Because they didn't just delete a lap. They woke up something far more dangerous. Subscribe only if you want to stay updated with the latest breaking news about F1 races. The lap had been nothing short of breathtaking. Hamilton had threaded the Ferrari through every apex like a needle through silk, balancing the car on the very edge of grip. It wasn't just a fast lap, it was a statement. Purple sectors lit up one after the other on the timing screens, sparking cheers inside the garage and gasps from the commentary box. The onboards showed a man at one with the machine, carving his way through the circuit with surgical precision. A champion proving once again why he was the most decorated driver in the history of the sport. Everything clicked. Every micro-adjustment, every lift, every brake pressure application, flawless. When he crossed the line and parked it in provisional P1, it felt inevitable. Untouchable. Hamilton had arrived. But then, the mood shifted. It was almost imperceptible at first, just a ripple across the timing data, a flicker on the live feed. A quiet message from race control tucked into the corner of the screen, track limits under review, car 44. No flashing alarms, no dramatic graphics. Just those cold, sterile words that every driver dreads. And then, one by one, the sectors began to turn red. Not because of speed. Because of sensors. Turn 4. Then turn 10. Moments later, turn 13. And then, to the shock of even the most veteran stewards, turn 19. 4 track limit breaches. 4 separate corners. 4 infractions in a single lap. It didn't feel possible. It didn't look possible. The onboard showed curb usage so tight it could be used in tutorials. There was no obvious advantage. No corner cut, no off-throttle extension. Just millimetric violations caught by laser-triggered sensors. The FIA didn't hesitate. The verdict was delivered with ruthless speed, lap time deleted. 5-second time penalty applied for repeated infringements despite prior warnings. It hit like a nuclear detonation. Not just a deleted lap. Not just a warning. But a full 5-second penalty, retroactively applied, dropping him down the grid like a stone in water. From glory to obscurity. From pole to P16. The Ferrari garage, moments earlier buzzing with energy, fell into an abyss of silence. Engineers stared at their screens as if willing the data to change. No one moved. No one spoke. They all knew what was coming. Seconds later, Lewis walked in, his helmet off, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked forward like a missile. The rage wasn't loud at first. It simmered, volcanic, bubbling just beneath the surface. The moment his gloves hit the carbon table, the silence shattered. What the fuck happened out there? The voice was like thunder in a tin box. Bonington froze mid-headset adjustment. Fred Vasseur turned from the telemetry in slow motion, as if hoping the moment would pass. But it didn't. Hamilton stormed toward the engineering desk, voice escalating with every syllable. Where was the thing call, Fred? 4 corners. 4. And not one word from the pit wall? You're joking, right? Tell me you're thing joking. Fred blinked, visibly shaken, scrambling for composure. Lewis, we were monitoring the situation. Monitoring? Hamilton cut him off like a scalpel. You were monitoring? Monitoring what? The F*****ing snack table. Because it sure as hell wasn't me on track. You watched me light up every sector and didn't think, hey, maybe we should tell him he's on the edge? Bonington stepped in, softer, trying to redirect the explosion. We saw turn 4 come up after you'd already passed Sector 1. By then, it was too late to warn without breaking concentration. Oh, please, Lewis snapped, spinning to face him. Spare me the "don't break his rhythm" speech. You think Verstappen doesn't get warnings? You think GP lets him float through quali without a word? They warn him the second a wheel goes wide. You think they care about rhythm more than results? No, they F*****ing win. Fred's hands went up. We didn't want to distract you. You were flying. Flying straight into a penalty. Lewis roared. And nobody thought to say a damn thing. You knew I had a warning earlier in the session. You knew the stewards were on high alert. And you sat there. And watched. And said nothing. The energy in the garage turned suffocating. No one breathed. A junior strategist looked away, pretending to recheck tire allocations. Another engineer opened a laptop just to have something to focus on. The mood was radioactive. Hamilton pointed at the screen displaying his invalidated lap. This lap. This masterpiece. Deleted because you froze. Because you decided it was better to play it safe than to fight for pole. 5 seconds. You know what that means? It means I'm starting behind both Alpines. And you're telling me that was worth the silence. Bonington tried again, his voice barely a whisper. We didn't want to risk throwing you off mid-lap. I don't need coddling. Lewis roared. I need a FING team. I need people who make decisions in real time, not a FING chorus of maybe-laters and let's wait and sees. Outside the garage, chaos exploded. Journalists sprinted toward their laptops. Social feeds erupted. Paddock insiders whispered in every corner. Commentators on international broadcasts abandoned their notes. Lewis Hamilton penalized 5 seconds for repeated track limits abuse. We'll start P16. Fan reactions split the internet down the middle. Some screamed injustice. Others claimed karma. But everyone agreed on one thing. Ferrari had just botched it. Back inside, Lewis leaned over the console, staring at the glowing sectors. Look at that data. Tell me where I gained time. Tell me where I cut a corner. Tell me where this mythical advantage was. Fred's voice cracked. It was millimeters, Lewis. We can't challenge the sensors. Then challenge the F*****ing rules, Lewis spat. Because if millimeters can erase a lap like that, this sport's already gone. Bonington placed a hand on Lewis's shoulder, cautiously. Let's regroup. Let's plan for the race. You can still recover. Lewis turned slowly, cold now. Recover? You think I'm here to recover? I came here to win. And you just handed away the best lap of the weekend. To censors. And silence. The silence returned. But this time it was different. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was disconnected. Disillusioned. Something had fractured, not just his trust in the team's decision-making, but maybe in the very structure around him. He had delivered a lap worthy of legends. And now, it was nothing. A deleted file. A forgotten moment. As he walked out of the garage, the crew parted like waves around him. No eye contact. No words. Just shame. And everyone watching knew this wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. This wasn't just a qualifying incident. This was a crack in the armor. A warning shot. A reckoning. And when Lewis Hamilton races with rage, the world burns. No, Bono. No. You don't get to do this now, Lewis said, pacing like a caged storm. You speak in my ear every lap. You tell me about traffic in turn 5 before I even reach sector 2. You warn me about clouds forming at turn 14, about gusts near maggots, about rear temps spiking by a single degree. You micromanage me to hell on outlaps. But now, the lap that matters most. You disappear. You go dead silent. What the hell were you thinking? The comms room held its breath. Nobody dared answer. Not yet. Do you even understand what that lap was? Do you even comprehend what I put into that car in Q3? I was on the edge of grip, braking on pure instinct, late apexing every corner like my life depended on it. And you let me drive into traffic like I'm blindfolded? While Leclerc gets the call to lift mid-lap. Fred stepped forward, trying to get a word in before it detonated. There was a timing delay, Lewis. The telemetry sync between sectors and car positioning broke. We had the message ready, it just... Lewis spun to face him. His eyes weren't angry, they were burning with betrayal. Don't insult me, Fred. Don't throw the word delay at me like it explains everything. Because it doesn't. Not when Charles got told in time. Not when he had the same data. The same engineers. The same feed. And yet he was warned. He lifted. He saved the lap. He's third on the grid. I'm 16th. That's not a system failure. That's someone deciding he mattered more than I did. Fred stayed still. But his silence, hesitation, really, was louder than any excuse. You didn't just cost me a lap, Lewis continued, voice trembling under the weight of suppressed rage. You cost me trust. The one thing you never get back in this business. A nearby engineer tried to step in with a report, but one glare from Lewis shut him down before the words even left his lips. I've seen this before. I know what it looks like. The whispers, the favoritism, the way a garage tilts its axis. You think I haven't noticed? The development updates that arrive for one side of the garage first. The new rear wing Charles tested before I even knew it existed. The simulations being tailored to his style. The strategy windows always tilting his way. Fred exhaled slowly, almost painfully. We're one team, Lewis. This isn't about favoritism. It's about execution. Things fell apart. No. You let them fall apart. The words struck with finality. You didn't lose the lap. I did. And you weren't the one out there, fighting a car that wasn't ready, against traffic that should have been cleared, in the middle of a lap you never bothered to protect. Silence again. Not awkward silence. Dangerous silence. Without another word, Lewis grabbed his helmet bag, shoved his gloves inside with violent precision, and stormed out of the garage. But the drama didn't stay contained within the concrete walls. It spilled into the paddock like fuel searching for a spark. Cameramen saw him first, moving fast, head down, jaw set like stone. Team members from McLaren and Mercedes watched him go past, whispering behind their hands. Mechanics from Red Bull turned to glance, pretending not to notice. But everyone noticed. Because you always notice when Lewis Hamilton looks like he's about to explode. And then, there he was. Charles Leclerc, still in full race suit, hairstyled, standing in front of a sea of Monégasque journalists, laughing softly at something a reporter said. Cameras flashed. Microphones hovered. He looked untouched by the chaos brewing behind the garage wall. Until Lewis walked up. The media froze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. One camera operator instinctively pulled focus. Charles, Lewis said, voice low, measured, dangerous. Charles blinked, confused for only a fraction of a second. Hey, Lewis. That lap was... You got the message, Lewis cut in. What? Charles looked caught off guard. Don't play dumb, Lewis said, stepping closer. Mid-lap. You were told about the traffic in Sector 3. You adjusted your entry speed into turn 12. You saved the lap. Charles hesitated. Just long enough for the cameras to notice. Yeah, they told me about it. It was close, but I had time to lift. It wasn't perfect, but... It was good enough for P3, Lewis finished. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in P16 because I never got the call. I'm not angry you got the info. I'm angry that I didn't. I didn't know, Charles said quickly. I thought we both got it. You thought wrong. Lewis' voice was absolute. And now I know where I stand. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't need to. The calm in his voice was far more terrifying than fury. Then he turned and walked away, leaving the Monégasque standing in silence in front of a dozen frozen journalists, all now realizing they just witnessed the beginning of something far, far bigger than a qualifying drama. Back at Ferrari HQ, the fallout had already started. The strategists were pulling comms logs. Fred was demanding timestamps. The telemetry department was frantically cross-referencing feed delays. But none of it mattered. The damage wasn't in the data. It was in the relationship. Lewis Hamilton no longer trusted his own team. And once that trust is broken, everything else falls. Whispers started surfacing. Was Lewis being phased out already? Was Ferrari protecting Charles ahead of 2026 regulation changes? Was this a soft power play to make him walk before they had to push? The Italian press, ever hungry, already had headlines drafted. Hamilton undermined. Civil war in Maranello. Ferrari fractured from within. By the time night fell, Toto Wolff had already sent a message. By morning, Lewis Hamilton wasn't just a driver with a point to prove, he was a man with a mission. And when that man is the most relentless driver of his generation, when he's wounded, underestimated, and cornered, he doesn't just fight back. He redefines the battlefield. And Ferrari had no idea what they'd just awakened. The paddock wasn't quiet, paddocks never are, but there was a certain shift in the energy, the kind of undercurrent you can feel in your gut before your brain even registers it. Somewhere beyond the buzz of reporters, the flicker of camera flashes, and the constant hiss of air compressors, something was off. The kind of tension you can't see, but everyone feels. Lewis Hamilton walked with a purpose that turned heads and hushed voices. No smiles. No nods. Just steel in his eyes and rage in his bloodstream. The race had ended, but for him, it hadn't. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not even close. He spotted Charles Leclerc near the back of the Ferrari garage. The Monégasque was still in his race suit, laughing, actually laughing, with one of the data engineers. It was casual, almost careless. Like he wasn't the reason Lewis was fuming. Like he hadn't just walked away from a qualifying session where one of them got a warning about track limits and the other got a brutal lap deletion without any heads up. "Hey," Lewis said, his voice low but charged with the kind of electricity that demands attention. Not loud, not angry, but alive. Charles turned slowly, smile fading. The look in Lewis's eyes stripped the moment of its warmth instantly. "Lewis," he said, brows furrowed. The tone was innocent. Maybe too innocent. Hamilton didn't stop walking until he was standing less than a foot away. His words landed like punches. "You got the warning, didn't you?" There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough. Charles blinked. "What?" Lewis's stare hardened. "Don't play dumb. You were pushing every lap, but in turn 11, you lifted. No reason to, unless someone told you. Unless someone said you were on the edge." Leclerc's body language shifted, subtly, but not subtly enough. "They told me I was close to the line. Just a warning. That's it." Lewis let out a cold laugh, short, clipped, cruel. "Just a warning. Must be nice. Meanwhile, I'm driving the lap of my session, absolutely on it, and I get nothing. No heads up. No alert. Just a lap deleted notification like a slap in the face. And now I'm starting 16th because someone in your half of the garage had their mic on, and mine didn't." Charles's jaw tightened. "Lewis, I didn't know you weren't being told. I didn't know anything about your radio. I was focused on my lap. That's not my responsibility." "That's the problem," Lewis hissed. "We're in the same car, the same team, but you've got your own little island, don't you? Protected. Prioritized. And every time I'm the one left out of the loop, I'm just supposed to believe it's an accident." "You're twisting this," Charles snapped, defensive now. You really think I've got some secret pipeline to Maranello feeding me advantages? That's paranoid, Lewis. I get what I get in the moment. That warning wasn't even strategic, it was just instinct to lift. Lewis stepped even closer. He wasn't yelling. He didn't need to. His words carried the weight of every slight, every frustration, every seed of mistrust that had taken root since they'd been paired at Ferrari. Instinct doesn't make you lift on a flyer. Information does. And don't act like you don't know how this works. I've been around longer than you've been in F1, Charles. And let me tell you something, when communication only flows one way, it's not incompetence. It's intention. Leclerc's eyes flared, the tension boiling now. So what? Ferrari is out to get you. You seriously believe I'm part of some conspiracy to destroy your weekend? I want us both at the front. It's not my fault if your side of the pit wall didn't deliver. Lewis shook his head slowly. It's not about conspiracy. It's about pattern. You always seem to get the breaks. The better undercut. The early strategy pivot. The extra warning. Me. I get radio silence until it's too late. Or a tire call that ruins the lap. Or traffic in Q3. It's always something, and I'm always left wondering if the team forgot I was driving a Ferrari too. There was a long silence. The kind of silence where hearts race and no one wants to break it first. The kind where reputations are reshaped in real time. You know what this feels like, Charles? Lewis said finally, voice softer, deadlier. It feels like I'm an outsider in my own team. And every time I try to raise a flag, I'm told to focus on the next lap, or keep pushing. But guess what? I'm done pretending this is normal. Charles clenched his jaw, voice lower now, but seething. Maybe if you spent more time trusting the team instead of attacking it, you'd get better results. Lewis leaned in, eyes locked. Maybe if the team gave me a reason to trust it, I wouldn't have to keep asking these questions. Maybe if I had a teammate who gave a damn whether I was set up to fail, I wouldn't feel like I'm driving solo in a two-man team. Leclerc turned away for a moment, running a hand through his hair, trying to keep control, trying to stay composed. He'd never heard Lewis like this. Not this raw, not this close to the edge. I don't want this war, Charles said quietly. It's already here, Lewis replied, just as quietly. The only question is, whose side are you really on? Neither of them moved. Neither blinked. Behind them, the crew watched in breathless silence. The cameras caught it all. The sponsors would pretend they didn't see. The team would issue a joint statement about open dialogue and learning opportunities. But the damage was already done. In that moment, the Ferrari garage wasn't a team. It was a battlefield. And the scars of what was said, and what wasn't, would echo long after the engines went silent. Exactly, Lewis Hamilton hissed, his voice simmering with a fury that had been held back for far too long. His eyes locked on Charles Leclerc with a kind of intensity that could burn through carbon fiber. You're dialed in on your lap, yeah. That one lap. That's all you're thinking about. Meanwhile, the entire damn garage, the pit wall, the strategists, the media, they're dialed in on you. Not on the guy with 7 world titles. Not on the guy who left everything behind to help this team climb out of a drought that's lasted over a decade. No. They're all fawning over the team's poster boy. And where does that leave me? The legend they begged to sign. Left in the dark. Charles blinked. For a split second, he looked like a man who'd been sucker-punched, not by force, but by something worse, realization. That's not fair, he shot back, his voice quieter but no less emotional. You know that's not fair. I didn't ask for this. I didn't push for any of this. I didn't go behind anyone's back. I just drove the lap they told me to. I executed. I didn't manipulate the call, Lewis. Lewis took a slow breath, his jaw flexing with restraint, the fire in his chest barely contained. No, you just benefited from it. You just happened to be in the right place every single time. And somehow, the strategy always tilts in your favor. Magically. Accidentally. Consistently. And you say nothing. You let it ride. Because deep down, you like being Ferrari's golden child. You've been here long enough to know exactly how this game works." Charles stepped forward now, frustration bubbling into anger. "You think I like this?" he snapped. "You think I enjoy watching the team fall apart over a qualifying mistake? You think I'm happy to see you, Lewis Hamilton, questioning me like I'm some pawn in a bigger plan? I respect you more than anyone in this paddock, but don't confuse my silence with complicity." Lewis leaned in slightly, voice now low and calm, which somehow made it even more terrifying. "Respect," he echoed. "You call this respect? Letting your team hang me out to dry? Sitting back while they send me out into traffic while you get clean air? Watching the data being shared unevenly and saying nothing? Respect would have been speaking up. Respect would have been saying, 'This isn't right. We're a team.' But you didn't. You stayed quiet. Because it served you." Charles's mouth opened, but the words wouldn't come. What could he even say? He wasn't a liar, and he knew Lewis wasn't wrong, not entirely. That silence, that brief hesitation, it was complicity, even if unintentional. And in that moment, the truth wasn't just painful. It was corrosive. Without another word, Lewis turned and walked off. Not storming. Not slamming anything. Just walking. Like a man who had made a decision, one that went deeper than just racing. Charles stood there, frozen in his fireproofs, watching the legend walk away, and something inside him shifted. A realization, a fear. This wasn't about pole positions anymore. This was about something broken. Something that had been cracked beneath the surface and was now splitting wide open for the world to see. And the world was watching. Within minutes, #JusticeForLewis exploded across social platforms. The footage of the pit lane confusion, the radio silence on Hamilton's side, the perfect timing for Leclerc, all of it went viral. Fans dissected every second. TikToks broke down telemetry data like it was a murder investigation. Twitter Spaces erupted with arguments. Instagram Reels overlaid dramatic music with Hamilton's walkout. Reddit theories surged with claims of favoritism, political power struggles within Ferrari, and secret alliances inside the team. Sky Sports scrambled for footage. ESPN cut in live. F1 TV pushed emergency coverage. The paddock had seen drama before, but this wasn't just a flare-up between teammates. This felt like a split. In the media pen, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a carbon wing. Charles finally emerged, eyes still searching for the right words. He gave the usual PR-friendly answers, but his body language said more than his mouth did. Tense shoulders. Shifting feet. Eyes that refused to stay still. He was rattled. The media knew it. The fans saw it. And Lewis, he never showed up. He skipped all interviews. No press conference. No debrief. He'd left the circuit immediately, his SUV pulling out of the paddock with tinted windows and a silence louder than any quote could have been. That silence was the quote. It screamed betrayal. It echoed through every garage, every newsroom, every WhatsApp group chat inside the F1 ecosystem. Inside Ferrari's hospitality suite, chaos quietly erupted. Fred Vasseur was on his phone non-stop. Senior engineers avoided eye contact with journalists. Mechanics whispered while packing up gear, avoiding cameras like the plague. The Unity Ferrari had been marketing all season long, 2 champions, 1 vision, was now a hollow slogan floating over a team torn in 2. Behind closed doors, the fallout was already underway. Vasseur convened an emergency meeting with both drivers scheduled for the following morning. Not to smooth things over. Not yet. First, to find out how deep the fracture had gone, and whether it could still be patched up before it ripped the team apart entirely. Because this wasn't just about 2 drivers. This was about Ferrari's soul. And right now, it was under siege. Hamilton wasn't angry just for the sake of pride. He had been down this road before. He'd seen what favoritism, division, and silence did to a team from the inside. And he'd spent a decade building something stronger at Mercedes. But now, he was back in the lion's den. And the scars from 2007, 2016, and every political storm in between, they were wide open again. As the sun set over the circuit, the paddock felt like a pressure chamber. Every journalist, every engineer, every sponsor could sense the instability. And everyone knew, if Ferrari couldn't fix this, they wouldn't just lose races. They'd lose everything. Championships, brand equity, legacy, and the most dangerous part. You can't control a storm when the storm is your own driver. Because Lewis Hamilton doesn't play games. He wins them. And if Ferrari thinks they can contain him, manipulate him, or sideline him quietly, they've gravely underestimated the fire they brought into their own garage. This isn't just a rift. It's a reckoning. And it's only just begun. For Lewis Hamilton, the Sunday Grand Prix didn't feel like another line on the calendar. It didn't feel like a routine race weekend or a box to tick. It felt like Judgment Day. A day loaded with unsaid words, closed-door conversations, hollow apologies, and whispers too loud to ignore. This was no longer a weekend about tire compounds or track evolution. It wasn't about setup adjustments or whether the hard compound could last another stint. No. This race was soaked in something deeper. It was personal. It was intimate. It was raw. It was war disguised as racing. And Hamilton, he wasn't driving for points anymore. He was fighting for his legacy. For his dignity. For every moment in the past year he had been overlooked, passed by, excluded from briefings, ignored in strategy meetings, and treated like a fading light in a sport he helped set on fire. 16th. A number printed coldly on the timing sheets, but it didn't capture the storm that was about to be unleashed. To some, it was a poor qualifying result. To Hamilton, it was a challenge, a trigger, a spark thrown onto a volcano. Because it's easy to count him out when he's buried mid-pack on a Sunday grid, surrounded by cars with fresher backing and younger blood. But what data will never tell you, what telemetry can never capture, is what happens inside a man who has won everything and is now being told, without words, that he's no longer part of the plan. That the future belongs to someone else. That the 7-time world champion, the man who redefined greatness, is now a footnote. That he should accept it, play nice, smile for the cameras, and bow out with grace. But grace was never going to be on the menu. Not today. Not when his own team, the garage he built from the ground up with sweat, pain, and dominance, had started making quiet preparations for life after him. You can paint the car, tweak the press releases, shake his hand in public, but Hamilton knows. He feels it in the tone of the race engineer, in the shift of eye contact during debriefs, in the way the garage gets just a bit quieter when the cameras turn off. They think he's done. That's the betrayal. Not open warfare, silent exile. And Lewis, he doesn't respond with words. He responds with fire. By the time the formation lap began, something had shifted. The cockpit wasn't just a seat, it was a throne reclaimed. That steering wheel wasn't a tool, it was a weapon. And the track wasn't just asphalt, it was a proving ground. Every heartbeat matched the RPMs. Every breath echoed in the helmet like a war drum. And once those 5 red lights shut off, it wasn't a race start. It was a detonation. Corner by corner, car by car, Hamilton began his assault, not like a desperate man clawing back places, but like a king tearing down a kingdom that had forgotten who built it. Every move was surgical. Every overtake calculated but laced with venom. He wasn't here to race. He was here to humiliate. To pass you so fast and so viciously that when you looked in your mirrors afterward, you questioned your entire existence in this sport. He didn't squeeze drivers, he shattered them. He didn't brake late, he defied physics. And every time his radio clicked on, it wasn't for updates. It was to remind the team, I'm still here. You can try to move on, but I'll be right in your mirrors, reminding you who made you champions. While others played it safe, Hamilton drove like he had nothing left to lose, because when you strip away the politics, the contracts, the sponsorships, what's left is a man who's been racing since he was 8 years old with everything stacked against him. Who clawed his way through racism, classism, team politics, media crucifixions, and still became the most decorated driver in the history of Formula One. This wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a Cinderella story. It was war-torn survival. It was blood on the asphalt and silence in the paddock as one by one, the younger, faster, hyped-up stars fell behind him. Lap after lap, the narrative began to collapse. The commentators who had quietly rehearsed his obituary were now scrambling to find new adjectives. The pundits who said he was past it were tripping over their own doubt. Even the engineers who had tried to push the strategy toward their new golden boy sat frozen in the garage, staring at the screens as the old lion roared back to the top. This wasn't supposed to happen. The plan was to phase him out gently. But Hamilton doesn't do gentle. He doesn't do quiet exits. He doesn't leave dinner while the meal is still warm. He flips the table and burns the menu on his way out. Every pass sent a message, not to the driver being overtaken, but to everyone who thought he couldn't, who said he wouldn't, who assumed he was done. You don't get to erase Hamilton. You don't get to write his ending before he's even begun his final chapter. You don't get to use him for a decade, win with him, build an empire around him, and then expect him to smile and fade into the background. Not now. Not ever. And the fans? They felt it. The crowd didn't cheer, they erupted. Not for the points. Not for the strategy. But because they recognized what they were witnessing, a legend taking control of his own story. This wasn't about winning. This was about refusing to be forgotten. About kicking down the doors of legacy and saying, I own this house. By the time the checkered flag fell, the result was almost irrelevant. The world had already seen what it needed to see. They saw the fire was still there. They saw that hunger hadn't faded. They saw that when pushed to the brink, Hamilton doesn't break, he evolves. You can give a young driver a better simulator, a sharper setup, a faster car, but you can't give him Hamilton's scars. You can't gift him Hamilton's soul. You can't replicate 18 years of being counted out, rising up, and proving them all wrong again and again and again. Sunday wasn't just a race. It was a reckoning. A reckoning for the team, for the doubters, for the sport itself. Because if you think you've seen everything Lewis Hamilton has to give, you haven't been paying attention. There's still venom in the bite. Still thunder in the voice. Still fire in the blood. He may not say it out loud. He doesn't need to. The track heard him. The world watched him. And every single person who doubted him, they're not sleeping tonight.